Hello guys, Dobby Dien from my apartment in Kyiv. Tonight's gonna be an AMA, a Ask Me Anything questions and answers video. I originally wanted to do this while walking around Kyiv, kind of in different settings and answering different questions. And then I realized you guys asked a lot of questions. So it's gonna be way easier for me to sit here with my laptop in the quiet of my home and be able to answer it for you. So here we go, let's jump straight in. So starting first with the member questions, the people who are channel supporters. If you want to support the channel, you can click join, and that way I'll always see your questions first. First is from Steve Ring. Are Ukrainians generally more optimistic or pessimistic about the future? This is a hard question to answer, but a very good one. In general, very optimistic. People believe that Ukraine will get through this, and we know we will. The only pessimistic part is how long it'll take. We all hope it'll end tomorrow or this month, but a lot of people in the back of their mind, they know it might go for a long time. Philip Uner asks about my life as a digital nomad. If you guys haven't followed me for a long time, 2013, I put down my boxing gloves and I actually started an online business. I started doing marketing and doing a lot of e-commerce stores. I linked that below where you can see, you can read all about that. I have a blog, johnnyfd.com, if you want to check that out. All right, so Bukretsky Comedy asks, if you're honest, do you regret moving to Ukraine even a little bit? That's hard to answer because obviously if I knew my life would be in danger and financially I would lose a lot of money coming here and buying property and investing in this residency program, I wouldn't have done it, obviously, but I feel like everything we do in our life, whether it's for the overall positive or negative, it's kind of a roll of the dice, right? Like none of us choose where we're born, but I don't regret it because I've learned and grown a lot as a person from being in Ukraine, and my life isn't as easy as it was before. Financially, I would have made a lot more money if I never came to Ukraine and I just had my normal life, or if I had, and I guess this is going to be answering a different question, is if I didn't have my heart here, if I didn't have roots here, I could just go back to my normal life and it would be off better, in quotes, but I don't regret moving. This is a good question from Likud. Do you still feel very skeptical of the media after being wrong about the invasion? Enjoy your videos, Johnny. Stay safe, keep them coming. For mainstream media, the reason why I didn't believe that they knew 100% that Russia was going to invade is because they didn't know 100% if Russia was going to invade. What the media is very good at is jumping on hot topics with cameras and showing the world what is happening in that moment, but normally in a very sensationalized way. For whatever reason, media, especially news, has to rely on ratings. I wish it wasn't like that. I wish that they could just report exactly what's happened without any sensationalism. And it's, whether people watch it or not, choose not to watch it or not, I think that they should still exist because news is important. The Western media and the media in general didn't know if Russia was going to attack or not. They just jumped on the sensationalist news because it was a hot topic. So being here and actually meeting some of the journalists and reporters, I know that they have no insights. They know less than people who are that are studying the topic or living here. And they definitely know less than people who are active in the actual conflict itself. They just jump on whatever's the hot topic. That's their job. So I still don't trust what they say because I know that they don't actually know the answer. They're just showing what is currently like the hot topic, if that makes sense. That doesn't mean that they're going to be wrong. It just means that they don't have any special insights. Another question. I'm Russian living abroad and teach it on YouTube, but I stand with Ukraine and want to learn Ukrainian in 2023. In your last video, I heard you speak in the hospital. I was wondering if you can share your learning process and recommendations. Thank you. So, actually, I've been learning Russian off and on for the past 2 years or so, but I haven't never really taken a course or dove into it. And thanks to this week's sponsor, I'm actually going to be taking my first ever Russian course to dive in and give me kind of a foundation and baseline for both learning Ukrainian and other Slavic languages in the future, but also to help me kind of navigate all the Russian news and things that are happening in the world this year and the last year. Whether you like it or not, Russia has been all over the media and all over the news, and it'd be very helpful to be able to understand and read some of it. So big thank you to this week's sponsor, Busuu, which is a language platform where you can actually learn 14 different languages. Busuu is a language learning platform that connects users around the world. You can learn up to 14 different languages, and Busuu provides compact lessons from experts and connects with a community of native speakers to help learners master vocabulary faster. So as some of you may know, I've been trying to learn Russian for the last 2 years with very little success. And actually one thing I really wanted to learn is just the basic Cyrillic alphabet better, because I can kind of read it, but I never really had that much practice. So Busuu actually has a really good program where you can learn the Russian alphabet, and here I am actually going through some of it. Je, I, pu. Je, z, I, pu. Ooh, I did it. Chai. They look the same. Oh, this has a Tsai. There we go. And what's cool with the Busuu Premium is actually you can get help from a native speaker, and you can do things like start a study plan to state targets. So for me, it's more about for travel, but also a little bit of fun and culture, friends, family. I want to be able to make small talk. I'm going to give myself the weekends off, and yeah, I'll study for, you know what, let's do 15 minutes a day. So there you have it. This is one of the goals I've set up with my study plan with Busuu Premium. So if you want to get started learning any of the 14 languages that Busuu offers, check them out in the links in my description below. You can start it for free, and you can actually get 7 days for a premium for free to check them out as well. So check out Busuu with the links below. Start learning any of the 14 languages for free, and with a free trial, you can actually get Busuu Premium for 7 days. Thanks again for Busuu for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to the Q&A. So a lot of people have asked, why don't you move to a safer place, or why don't you leave Ukraine? This is a question I've thought about a lot, because my life here is actually pretty comfortable. I have my apartment that's finished with the renovation. I have some friends here. I have my car here, I have a life here, I have permanent residency, so I don't have to count how many days I'm here, versus when I'm in the Schengen zone in the EU, I have to always count, you know, am I gonna be up to 90 days? When I'm in the US, I have to count, am I here for more than 31 days before I trigger a higher tax bracket? Or now that I have my residency, you know, I could actually stay longer, up to 6 months, but that's aside from the point. I just don't want to deal with the headache of counting, can I stay somewhere because of visas anymore. I did it for 10 years, been traveling full time since 2008, and living off of tourist visas mostly. For the first time in my life, I could just settle in one place and not pay rent anymore. You know, I've invested a lot of money into this property, and I'm very happy here. Would I be happy living in a beach hut in Thailand? Yes. Of course, you know, or Sri Lanka, but at the same time, unless I'm willing to spend, you know, $2,000 a month or more, I'm not going to have a place as comfortable as this. And regardless, I'm not going to have a place that I would really feel like at home. And thirdly, I would always have to count how many days I have there for my visa, if that makes sense. So aside from the other reasons, which we'll get into, of, you know, thinking maybe I can help while I'm here, maybe I'm helping to support the local economy by spending money. Aside from all that, just from a personal life, I'd rather be in Ukraine. If the war wasn't happening, I would be here. You know, I've calculated the risk of being here, and it's relatively high being in an active war country, but it's not like a, you know, 50% death rate. You know, there's 2 million people living in Kyiv, and unfortunately, people are losing their lives because of Russian attacks. But the chances of dying is probably on par, if not a little bit less, than riding a motorbike or scooter in Bali or in Thailand or even in Sri Lanka, because the only way to get around there is by riding the scooters. And in Sri Lanka, for example, I've almost gotten hit by their public buses, well, actually their private buses, a few times. My life has been in a higher danger bracket living in those countries than actually being here having rockets, fall a kilometer away. Johnny, you mentioned being interested in van life in one of your previous videos. If you took that upon yourself, would you do it in Ukraine or the States, somewhere? I wouldn't do it in Ukraine because, I don't know, van life isn't popular in Ukraine, and actually it's not really necessary here, if that makes sense. Like for me, the purpose of van life is either to sleep in very kind of remote destinations that don't have lodging, besides like tent camping, or save money because hotels are just way too expensive and crappy. So in Ukraine, you can always find within a few hours like a city or a town that'll have okay hotels for an okay price. So it's not worth it. But if I was going to do it, I'd probably do it in the U.S., to be honest, because I would love to explore all 48 lower states, maybe even drive up to Alaska or something. And in the U.S., hotels are super overpriced. I mean, basically anything under $100, and you're staying in a really crappy motel that you don't want to be in. It's going to be like dirty and grimy, so I would rather sleep in the van. And I just hate wasting money on hotels anyways, so that's one reason. And second, the U.S. has so many beautiful kind of nature places to visit. The only problem with the van life, and the reason why I haven't done it, is the van itself is a sunk cost. In general, you're going to spend around $50,000 to, more for a nice van, or you're going to spend a year building it, and you're still going to spend $30,000 or $40,000. So, for the vans I want, it would probably be about $60,000 to $70,000, and the cost of gasoline, maintenance, getting tickets, insurance, and the depreciation of the van, of things breaking, and then even things like, all the passes you need to buy for to be able to stay in, camp zones, or to have access to the, where the BLM, the free parking is. It ends up actually costing a lot of money. Like, I've watched a few van lifers, YouTubers, on how much money they spend per month, and they spend way more money than I do traveling to beautiful places in Southeast Asia, or Thailand, or to Mexico or something, and just staying in hotels or Airbnbs. So it just doesn't make any financial sense, and I don't like nature enough to want to be out in nature 24/7. Like, if I was an avid rock climber, or if I loved hiking and mountain biking, then I would do it. But for my lifestyle, it just doesn't make sense. But I do like watching them on YouTube.
Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this tour. Okay, so like I mentioned, this is a 2020 Winnebago Travato. There's a sink and a faucet that works. This overhead space is used for storing cleaning gear, food, kitchen items. For me, there are 2 beds in this coach. So this area is a shower. It has a toilet. It has a drop-down sink. It has a faucet.
Am I ever planning on getting full Ukrainian citizenship, and is it possible? So actually, after 5 years of being a permanent resident, I can take a Ukrainian language test and maybe a few other things, and I can actually become a citizen. I'm not thinking about it yet because first, it's so far away, but I do hope that I speak fluent Ukrainian by then. I'm trying. My class will start next week. And in general, if I'm actually living here and not traveling all the time, I should pick it up and be good enough at it. Right now, Ukraine has this no double citizenship policy, but I've heard that they're changing that. So if in 5 years I can keep my US passport and have a Ukrainian passport, then I would do it. A few different people have asked about my house in Kharkiv, if it's in good condition still, if I'm gonna check on it. I answered it in the Christmas video, but basically it's like Schrodinger's cat. Right now, I don't know if it's alive or dead. Most likely the apartment itself survived, but there might be some damage. Anyways, it's been sitting empty since the war started, and I don't know what to do with it because it's not really worth trying to find someone to rent out long term right now. And also, I don't know anyone who wants to live in Kharkiv even for free because it is a little bit dangerous there still. I have thought about renting it out long term or finding someone to live there, but right now there's not really a big reason for me to even check on it besides knowing it's okay today, but then it might not be okay, next month. So right now I'm kind of putting it off, to be honest. So Jasmine asked, so what was my favorite trip of the year? I would definitely say going to Paris to visit my cousin. I haven't seen him since the start of COVID, and me and Jacob are very close. He was my best friend actually in Southern California when I was living there, and he just happened to be my cousin as well. So I was very happy to see him. And also Paris turns out to be amazing. I've been putting it off because I thought Paris was gonna be overcrowded, overpriced, and people were gonna be rude, but actually I really liked it. And the museums there and the architecture, it's so magnificent that it's actually worth paying the extra prices for. So I would love to go back again one day. And a few people asked about travel kind of in general. To be honest, if the airport was opened in Kyiv or even in Lviv, I could just take a train there and go to the airport relatively easily, I would go visit friends. I would go continue my normal vlogging life. Before the war, I was a full-time travel vlogger for the last couple of years, for the last 2 years. I would happily do that, but now it's so difficult to go from Kyiv to Lviv, then to the border, queue up at the border for 8 hours, cross the border, and then get from the border to the next big city, and then from there fly to another city just to transfer. It's like a 3-4 day journey, and it's just not worth doing, and it's exhausting. So I would like to not travel until the airports reopened again. That would be my plan. But if I have to, or there's a big need for me to leave, then I have to do what I do. What are the top 3 best moments of my life? First, for sure, is the first time I went scuba diving. That changed my life. Before that, I thought I was happy living in LA, having the normal American LA lifestyle, going to clubs on the weekend, trying to be cool, trying to pick up girls. And when I went scuba diving the first time, I was on vacation in 2008. I loved it. I was like, you know what? There's so much more to this world than this fake BS that we've been fed. And that's when I quit my job. I got rid of everything, closed that chapter of my life, and I moved to Thailand to become a dive master or dive instructor. So I would say that was for sure the best memory of my life. Any plans on running the Nomad Summit again in Chiang Mai or elsewhere? So for the last 5 years, I've been putting on these conferences for digital nomads on different topics, whether it was like Amazon or marketing or creating apps, whatever it is. I had different speakers in different fields, and I had 5 events, annual events, mostly in Chiang Mai, Thailand, but also we did it in Mexico. We had one in Las Vegas, and we were supposed to have one in Tbilisi, Georgia, until COVID messed up those plans. And at that time, I put everything on pause. I was going to redo it again the next year or as soon as COVID ended. But then I decided, even though I can just shut it down and just forget about it, let me give everybody a 100% refund, just so I don't have to worry about holding their tickets anymore. And even people who didn't want a refund, I just gave everyone a refund anyways. I said, I just don't want to think about it. And that allowed me the mental space to not have to do another event. So Nomad Summit, unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna have another one, but it was a very good event, and I'm glad the recordings are all online for everyone to watch completely for free. So check them out. So what income streams do I currently rely on today? Am I tapping into the nest eggs emergency fund? Luckily, I'm not selling any assets to pay for my life. I still have my income from YouTube. Thank you very much. It is like a full-time job though. You know, I think a lot of people don't realize that for a small to medium-sized YouTuber like I am, it's a full-time job. Like for every 30 minutes of video that you see here, it probably takes me 3 to 8 hours to create and produce. So at least a full day's work, and then the next day, I read comments or reply to people, or I set up the next video, or do kind of the behind the scenes stuff. And if I wasn't making 15 videos a month, I wouldn't be able to make enough money to have a good life and still be able to to save some and be generous and help people out. Like if I was only making one video a month, like some people, or even one video a week, then I probably would have to dip into other like streams of income or savings. But luckily this is a full-time job and I actually like doing it, and you guys like watching it, so thank you very much. I do have some passive income coming in from some of the other things I've created in the past. Like I have 2 ebooks, 12 Weeks in Thailand and Life Changes Quick. You can buy them on Amazon. I have some courses on Udemy. I have some other kind of random things from the past that I've created that still bring in a little bit of money, but it's not a lot. I still have my retirement savings that I'm not touching. So for now, I'm fine. Most of my money comes from YouTube now. Design Park says, what's the difference between living in Asia and Europe, having lived in both like Sri Lanka, Thailand, and now Ukraine? It's extremely different. I guess if you live in Bangkok, it's not as different, but like living on the islands, or so Bangkok, Colombo, or any of the kind of big cities are a little bit more, slightly more like living in Kyiv or Prague or London, but not really. It's still so different. Like the mindset, the walkability, the public transportation in Europe, just like it's very different. So for example, in Asia, in all the places I lived, like you're just always sweating and you're always hot, right? But you're never cold. So that's the very difference. In Ukraine, you're always cold, except for those few months in the summer. But now I actually prefer to be cold because I can just bundle up and then go out. And then I started enjoying winter sports or winter things a little bit more. While in Sri Lanka or Thailand, I'm doing a lot of stuff on the beach, or hiking and t-shirts and shorts. It's a completely different chapter. I would suggest everyone visit both to see what you like. But after living in Asia for almost 10 years, I'm just tired of always being sweaty and hot, and I just want something different. Not that living here is better, it's just that it's a different stage in my life now. And I prefer being here, or in Europe in general. A few people asked me about my MacBook or my iPhone. I still have my base model iPhone 13, and then my base model MacBook Air that you guys can see here. This is the M1, and it works perfectly fine. I edit all my videos on here, and for 1080p, it works absolutely fine. The reason why I don't edit in 4K, even though my phone can shoot in 4K, is because it takes up 4 times as much space, which I don't have on my phone or my laptop. And I don't think people need 4K. I think it's a cool concept, and I know in the future we're gonna be watching 4K, but at least of 2022, the type of daily life vlogs that I film in 1080p, I honestly don't think people would notice the difference. For now, I think this computer and this phone is actually completely fine. if you're gonna buy one, I think for most people, a M1 MacBook Air is completely fine. Eventually, I'll get an M2, but right now, I don't want to waste the money of upgrading for something that isn't broke, if that makes sense, because that's how you become broke, by upgrading every year for no reason. A ton of people asked, when am I gonna be doing another video with Bald and Bankrupt, when we're gonna meet up? I don't know, because he can't come to Ukraine. He got rejected at the border when he tried to come because all the Russian stamps on his passport. And ironically, he can't go to Russia either. So, like, we could meet up and just hang out somewhere in Europe or Asia, but I just don't want to travel. It's so far, you know, so we will meet up one day. You know, did we have a falling out? How are things? I mean, you know, we are very different people, actually, like, and I'm, you know, living in Ukraine. He's still in love with old Soviet stuff. But at the same time, he is the reason why half of you have found my channel. If it wasn't for Bald and Bankrupt and me being on his channel and him being in mine, I would probably still have a pretty, you know, not small, but I would still have 100,000 subscribers, and I probably wouldn't be able to do this full time financially, or be able to grow and reach as much of an audience, make as much of an impact through the fundraisers and all that. So I'm very grateful to Bald and Bankrupt, and I do look forward to hanging out again in the future. I just don't know when it's going to be. These are pretty deep and good questions. Is my time in Ukraine just another temporary stop in my life, or do I plan to be here long term? And then there's a few other questions about, you know, do I see myself getting married here, having pets or having kids? So I bought an apartment and got permanent residency, you know, for a reason. I didn't just decide to come here for 3 months and, you know, say, all right, I'll leave it all. I think part of it was pushing me. It pushed me during COVID when things were so unsure and I was so tired of traveling, and I wanted a place I can legally stay. So that definitely changed, you know, kind of pushed me towards making a decision, maybe faster than I would have normally. But I had been thinking about settling down. You know, I was turning 40 at the time. I think I was, you know, late 30s. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna travel forever with just a minimalist backpack. I wanna put down roots. And I liked that Ukraine had a pretty straightforward and, you know, not terribly overpriced residency program. And so my plan was, and probably still is, to have this to be my base, to live here, have, you know, solid friends, have a family, you know, maybe have kids, have pets. But I still want to travel, still want to go places. And if the airport was open, it actually would be completely easy, because I would just go, you know, on a short trip once a month somewhere for a week, film, see friends, you know, be a public speaker at events, you know, whatever it is, and then come back to my home where I can just chill out, be with friends, I can edit videos, and have that type of lifestyle. Now that that is much more difficult because the airport's closed, I've decided just to stay here for the time being. But in the future, that would be my plan. You know, I would love to meet an amazing woman here, you know, get married, have kids, but then marry someone who understood that my job requires me traveling. So maybe she would stay, you know, here, you know, with our cat and our dog and our kids, you know, while once a month I would go somewhere for work for a week and then come back. Or if we, you know, ideally she would have like babushka or her family nearby, and we can drop off, you know, the cat or the dog or something with them. Maybe take the kid with us traveling. That'd be fun as well. But who knows? Right, things are so unpredictable right now. Andy Reid asked, how many Ukrainians do you think will return to Ukraine after the war? What do you think is the state of the Kyiv real estate market? So that's two questions. Real estate in Kyiv actually is relatively the same, because so many places got destroyed in other cities. A lot of people have moved to Kyiv. So actually, prices actually haven't really gone down that much, but there's obviously less buyers. Oh, the big question of how many Ukrainians I think will return. I would like to think that Ukraine will return to normal, that the vast majority people will come back. But honestly, out of all the people I knew, 30, 40 plus Ukrainians, maybe 50 plus, only a few of them have actually returned so far to live full time. And when I speak to the other ones, the longer that they're away, the more they put down roots in another country, whether it's learning the local language, whether it's German or French or improving their English or whatever it is. And the more they go through the process of getting, local documents and an apartment and a job and friends, the less likely they're ever going to go back to Ukraine. And that's the biggest tragedy. I think whether, this war ends tomorrow or, 2 years from now, Ukraine has permanently lost 1 million people. Whether that's through death or through just people choosing to stay away because they've worked so hard to build a life somewhere else, or they had all this opportunity now to get a jump start somewhere else. Ironically, a lot of people who had dreamt about living abroad before the war or thought, Europe was so much better or America was so much better, a lot of them realize actually it's not, and they actually do appreciate Ukraine more and want to come back more. So maybe a lot of people will come back when it's actually 100% safe. But I think the longer it drags on, the less chance we'll have of people fully returning. And that's very, very sad. I think the one thing that's actually saving people, saving the country from not collapsing, is the fact that men can't leave. And by the men not being able to leave, that means a lot of people have family members here, their boyfriend or husband or brother or someone here where it makes them come back to visit or keep in touch or want to move back. And I think that's actually a good move for the country to keep the men here, because if everybody left, and everybody got jobs overseas, the country would be really, really damaged by just people, immigrating away. It would be like another Moldova, where all the young people, all the smart people, have a chance to, to live in Europe or the US or Canada. One of our plans and my goals for 2023. My goals is first, the most important one is to get back in shape. I've gained a lot of weight since the war started, and most of it's through stress. Secondly, it's by not having a proper routine. When I'm living in one place, I like to work out, go to the gym, and I end up eating, relatively healthy food. I eat a lot and I like food, I love food. But when I'm working out, I'm normally in decent shape, so it's fine. But since the war started, I haven't had a gym membership or a steady gym membership. I've been stress eating, and I've also not been working out. So that's really messed me up. Now that I've been back, I've actually been going to the gym regularly again. And even with the blackouts, which are annoying, I still go, or at least I work out at home. And that's gonna be my number one goal for 2023. And this time I don't wanna go on some crazy diets or crazy workout routines. I know what works now. I just know I just have to be consistent with it. As far as other plans, if this war ends, I want to celebrate, and then I want to, obviously the airport will be open, I can travel again, meet up with friends, visit family. But if it doesn't end, it really depends on how the situation is. I'm perfectly happy being here as long as it's relatively safe, and also I can make somewhat of a difference, even if it's just supporting the economy by going out and spending money and showing what's happening. Olga asks, why don't I want to live in America? The best answer to this is, I believe it's overpriced, and it's not the culture or lifestyle that I want to have. I'm a bit disenchanted with the U.S. After seeing other countries where, every country has its pros and cons, and I'm sure there might be a place in the U.S. which is also, people are nice, it's not expensive, and and people aren't the negatives of what you see in the media. But at the same time, even if I found that, it would be hard to travel anywhere from there. Travel is a big part of my life, and the fact is, the U.S. is far from everywhere. Besides maybe Mexico, maybe a few other places like Hawaii or something, which is still in the U.S. But it's just a pain in the ass and expensive to get anywhere from the U.S. So that's a big reason. So if I lived in the U.S., I'd want to be by a major international airport that I don't have to transfer, and that would be California, LA probably, and I don't want to live in LA. I lived there for many years, and I don't like the future that I saw for myself living in the US. I mean, I left the US for a reason. I had a really good corporate job, I had a cool car, I had a cool life. If you looked at my social media, it looked like I was having a good life, but in fact, I was really unhappy. A guy doesn't decide to get into all this weird self-help stuff and try to learn all these weird pickup tactics and tricks because he's happy and he's living a normal life. I was doing it because I was very insecure. There was a lot of the racism in the US, and it just wasn't a happy place for me. I try not to dwell on my past or talk about things like this because I'm always looking forward, and I really believe that people who dwell in the past, they're not living life today, and they're definitely not going to be any better in the future. So I just ignore those people. This is what I like about travel and new experiences and redefining myself and creating new chapters in my life, is not letting the negatives of the past drag me down and just moving forward, if that makes sense. It's not that I would never move back to the US and start a new chapter there. I just can't see at this point in my life it being a better chapter. I think things are super overpriced in the US. Rent, property, but even food going out and all that stuff. It's just a bad value. While places in Asia or places in Europe, there's still places that first off are much easier to travel to other places from. And second, it's just a better value in general, if that makes sense. Oh, here's a fun question. Am I still going to buy property in the countryside or continue growing crops on the property? Is it feasible? That was a dream of mine. I thought it'd be cool. I love the idea of owning land and owning a dacha somewhere, but I just know me and my personality, I just can't do it. I like to travel too much. I like the freedom of being able to not have to water plants. I can't even keep my basil plant alive. It's not a necessarily good thing. I think hopefully one day I'll settle down and I'll have a bit more stability. But for now, I can't have that responsibility in my life. So even though, it would be nice to have a countryside home, for now I don't want to have the extra responsibility. And with that, I'm gonna wrap it up. That was a lot of questions. Thank you guys so much for asking. And I think there's a few I'm surprised that people didn't ask. I thought when I did this Q&A, it'd be mostly about the war or the electric situation or things like that. But maybe I've answered most of those questions in my videos anyways. So it was nice to be able to talk a bit more personal about my life. Somebody asked, actually, I skipped this question by accident. They asked, do I see myself still doing humanitarian work and charity work when this war ends? I don't think so. It's a lot of work, to be honest. It's very time consuming. I think this is why those charities, a lot of them have such high overhead, is because it's just they hire so many people to take care of so many different things, accounting or logistics or marketing or whatever it is, video editing, whatever it is, social media posting. And by me doing all of it, it's so much work. And right now I do it because It's needed. But if you remember in my old videos, I never wanted to start the GoFundMe. I never wanted to be the one to have to deal with the cash, the money. I wanted all that money just to go to a charity and have them do it. So that's why I actually started with a Resolve for Ukraine fundraiser on YouTube, which now we've raised $37,000 from. So thank you guys for donating. I like that because I never need to touch any of the money. That goes directly to Resolve for Ukraine from YouTube, and they can deal with it. But to be honest, they probably have overhead too, because I think they're based in New York. They have some offices in Lviv, and I'm sure that money is slower and not 100% of it reaches, you know, like the everyday small people that need it the most at that very moment. Versus if you guys send $100 to my GoFundMe, 97 of it can go to grandma, Ludi, me, who needs it today because she can't buy groceries. But for me to have that as my full-time, job, it's a lot of work for me, and I don't want to do it. But I just feel like because I can, I will do it now because, especially in the beginning of the war, when I knew the big charities were so slow that there was going to be people starving, and I just, I just couldn't sit back and not do something. But to be honest, now my kind of thoughts are, it's been 9 months. The big charities, they've had plenty of time to set up logistics and local contacts. So if Red Cross isn't deploying the, $1 billion that they've received in Ukraine properly, like, that's not my fault. Like, Red Cross should be here, and they're still not here. I mean, they're doing very little in Ukraine. But thankfully, there's some of the bigger charities that are here doing stuff. But, once in a while, I still meet people that you see in some of the videos, that just need some direct help. Or there's some families I've been helping, for the last few months, or even really during the start of the war, that have kids that, they don't have much income and they're struggling. So I send them some money every month. But I don't want it to be like a full-time job going forward. So I hope that this war can end and I can just shut it down and then just not have to deal with it again. It's a part of the chapter that, I think a lot of people get into like humanitarian stuff once they've made it, but they don't realize it's another full-time job. And not saying that I'll never, want to help people in the future, but at least for a while, I want to take a big break from it, if it makes sense. So thank you for everyone who has donated and helped so far, whether it's directly through Resolve for Ukraine, through YouTube, or through the GoFundMe, or through somewhere else. It's been very needed at this time, but my wish for 2023 is that it'll no longer be needed because Russia will leave Ukraine and this war can end. Дякую, слава Ukraine. See you guys next one.